The sling, ancient and humble weapon. No, guys, that's a slingshot. The sling, ancient and humble weapon. The sling is a very simple weapon. It consists of a pouch and two cords. Many times the pouch, in this case, is made out of leather and the cords are made out of some sort of fiber. There have been cases where these have been found to be woven entirely of fiber and cordage, even including the pouch. The pouch, of course, is where you're going to put the stone. It could be a stone, clay stones have been made, but also lead as well. Apparently it goes all over the world, but these don't leave too much archaeological traces. We know that ancient armies of the Greek and Roman period employed peltasts from the Balearic Islands. Of course, the Balearic Islands still hold slinging competitions, and they're great fun to watch. Another thing that's not so fun to watch is in the Israeli occupied settlements in Palestine. The rioters sometimes use slings against Israeli soldiers, but you can see its use is maintained and continued. Let's see. We also have some documentation showing this sling being used in Anglo-Saxon England. So, but we can assume that it's very widespread, especially since it shows evidence in both the New World and the Old World. Let's see. What else can I tell you about this? It's not very accurate. We're not really sure about the maximum velocity. That depends on a lot of things. Your cast. The cast, of course, is the technique for throwing the stone. And of course the stone, which may be heavy, small, light, made out of stone, made out of lead or clay. And this has a lot of effect on it. Unless you have a particular police officer who finds this and is well versed in the Bible, anyways, will say, oh, you know, David used this against Goliath, so it must be a deadly weapon. You're coming in, boy. Otherwise, you could have this rolled up in your pocket and accidentally leave it in your pocket when you board an airplane, and none will be the wiser. Of course, it'd be completely useless inside of a crowded airplane, but suppose you crash land on a deserted island, you could conceivably use it to gather game. But primarily this is just a toy to play with from my point of view. So there's a few casts or techniques for launching the stone that I'm going to show you, but it's also important to know that if you're going to practice this, do it far away from any breakable windows or anybody else that might be concerned about the dangers. The first couple of times you try this, you may well wind up throwing a stone straight up in the air and not know exactly where it's going to land. So be very careful there. Actually, speaking of stones, if you find a really flat stone and launch it, you'll hear it sort of make a sort of buzzing because the stones rotate as they leave the sling. It's kind of an interesting effect. Let me show you the construction of this sling. Now, it's just a piece of leather. I find that chrome tanned goat skin is one of the best because it's tough and it's strong and flexible. On this end of this piece of leather, I extended the leather out to make it almost a thong for about an inch. And I used that to tie the cordage against it. And I sort of invented a knot that would not come untied. In fact, using the centrifugal force of the throw, it would actually tighten itself as it's being used. So both ends are secured in that manner. At the opposite end, of course, I've got a knot and a loop. The knot in this case is a figure 8 stopper knot, and this is a bowline knot. It's big enough size for one finger, although there's circumstances where you want to have 2 fingers in there, and I'll point that out in a moment. Okay, the casts. I'm going to explain the 2 casts that I know. I was trained in slinging by a couple of people who had been untrained as well, so we were just sort of inventing things as we went along. So these casts I just made out of whole cloth and used whatever worked. So you look at the sling and it's about 3 feet long, and my arm is about that same length. So imagine you're throwing a rock with an arm that's 6 feet long. You could really make that move. And that's the idea behind this throw, which I call the overhand throw. And it's basically just a primal movement. Therefore, you can usually get pretty good azimuth. In other words, I know it's going to land someplace along that plane. The other factors is not easy to get. But here's the overhand throw. Now the other throw uses some principles of physics, specifically the law of conservation of angular momentum, I believe. So basically I will have the sling off to the side as far off as I can to the right, and I'm going to pivot on my left foot. And I'm going to describe the largest circle I can manage, and then as I come around I'm going to whip it over my head and create a small circle. What happens is the torque that I've generated with my own entire body weight is going to be converted into velocity. And this is one circumstance where I feel like my finger is being pulled out of its socket by the centrifugal force. And in this case, I usually have a larger loop so that 2 fingers are actually handling this. But we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So here's what I call the pirouette. Now there's a third technique that you will see if you look up the Balearic slingers, their competition. They're using a particular cast for their throwing. And also if you look at newsreel footage of Palestinian rioters fighting against Israeli soldiers, they're also using the same technique. I'm not sure if that's a coincidence or not, but it's a technique that's worth practicing. So here we go. So that in a nutshell is the sling. It's a simple, humble weapon. It dates back probably to the dawn of humanity. It's been known, as far as we know, all around the world. It can be made with the simplest ingredients, and it's not very accurate. I mean, I've practiced for years and I can't hit the damn thing. But it's fun. Like I said, you could probably roll this up, accidentally leave it in your pocket, get on an airplane, and no one will be the wiser, although it's completely useless inside of confines of an airplane. But hey, you know, you get abandoned someplace, all you have is this, or your shoestrings and a sock. You can build one from scratch. So give it a shot. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, if you have any experiences doing this, let me know. I'd like to share experiences with other slingers. So thanks for watching. See you next time.